Hello, welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. Today I want to talk about the fair tax that I've been hearing a lot about lately. And I'd like to point out a couple of things that perhaps the proponents of it have addressed these issues, but I do not think that they have been addressed satisfactorily enough for me to support the tax itself. Even though on the face of it, it sounds like a really great idea, and apparently there's a lot of grassroots support for it, I cannot support it for various reasons, and I'll tell you what those are. First of all, there's an assumption built into the fair tax that the so-called embedded taxes that are already within the cost of consumer products would just go away. That we assume at our peril that corporations and companies that sell products and services will automatically roll back their prices for the so-called embedded taxes that they already pay, that they pass on to the consumer now. But I say that is a bunch of bullshit. Okay? Corporations are not going to give back something that they've already been taking for all of this time. I don't believe it. Now, if you want to enact a fair tax, you're going to have some kind of provision which makes it mandatory that the so-called embedded taxes are rebated out of the cost of consumer products. Otherwise, they're not just going to voluntarily lower their prices. I don't care what anybody says. It's just not going to happen. I'll give you a good example. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the state government of Pennsylvania had ordered Pittsburgh to reduce the amount of taxes that they charge on parking within the city of Pittsburgh. And there was some contention over the issue, but the bottom line was that the Pittsburgh City Council voted to roll the tax back a certain percentage, and lo and behold, nearly all of the parking garages within the city of Pittsburgh failed to roll back the cost to park within their facilities. And they claim that they have absorbed earlier tax raises, and therefore they do not feel that it is in their best interest to roll back their prices now, because they've already absorbed some of the costs from earlier taxes without raising their prices, which I think is also bullshit. So anyway you slice it, that's a good example of where tax rollbacks or a reduction in tax rates on a corporate level do not translate into benefits for consumers. So unless there is some actual law passed in conjunction with the so-called fair tax, demanding that the embedded taxes within products is to be rebated, then I can't be for it. Okay? Corporate greed is just such that abolishing the corporate tax is not going to translate into lower prices for goods for consumers. So all of you who like the fair tax, I actually like the idea of a fair tax, a national sales tax, but without certain other things taken into consideration, I do not think that it ultimately is fair. And because of corporate greed and because of the assumptions that are built into that, I do not believe that it will be fair, and I do not believe that it will be beneficial for most people in this country, in fact, for all consumers. It certainly would be great for corporations and companies that do business here. There's no question about that. It would be a tremendous boon for them. But I'm talking about the regular everyday Joes. And I know all about the prebates and all of that other stuff, but it doesn't address that one underlying problem which I see, and that is that there is no guarantee that corporations are going to be lowering their prices in accordance with the implementation of the fair tax. So fair tax is not fair because corporations are going to keep charging the same amount or not reduce the so-called embedded taxes of their products enough to match that which the national sales tax would cause their prices to go up by. I just don't see it happening unless it's mandatory under the law. So fair tax, I got to say thumbs down, no to. Something certainly needs to be done with the tax system in this country. There's no question about that. And as far as the IRS, because I'm against income taxes of any kind against people. And something needs to be done about that. And certainly tax reform or outright tax change is something laudable and necessary. But I do not believe the so-called fair tax is the answer at this particular time. Thank you. Good night.